Hello and welcome back to another episode of Indistinct Chatter. I'm Eliza and we are still in award season, so first up, I have to talk about the Actor Awards. If you didn't know, the SAG Awards has officially rebranded and they are now called the Actor Awards. And I think unless you're in the industry or super into award shows, you might not even know what a SAG is. So the rebrand makes sense, especially since this award is given to actors by actors. The 32nd Annual Actor Awards, hosted by Kristen Bell, took place on March 1st at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles. And if you didn't catch it, it is on Netflix. But honestly, it's the red carpet I want to chat about first. For a while, red carpet interviews got super stale. And don't get me wrong, I love when seasoned journalists step into their gowns and tuxes and they do their interviews with A-listers. But honestly, right now, I am loving this new wave of interview hosts or correspondents. I'm not sure what their titles are. Paige DeSorbo of the Giggly Squad podcast hosted alongside Access Hollywood's Scott Evans for Netflix's official pre-show. And Drew Afualo, host of the comment section, served as a red carpet correspondent for Bustle. Also, I might have just butchered her last name, and if that's the case, I am so sorry. But what I love about these correspondents is that they are not boring, like at all. It's not the same mindless questions over and over again. Like, I get it. Fashion on the carpet is very important. It's how designers make their mark. So I get that asking who someone is wearing matters, but it felt like we were constantly getting the same generic shit, especially when the interviewer clearly hadn't seen or heard of the work of whoever they were talking to. These new hosts, they just feel different. Dare I say, a breath of fresh air. They are a little less media trained, which I love, and just generally making red carpets fun again. Drew, for instance, was handing out snacks on the red carpet, which is just such a great icebreaker. She also gives off this amazing best friend energy. She's super supportive and candid, and her interviews feel like she's just with a friend catching up. And so it's just a better viewing experience, in my opinion. And it just seems like less of a press obligation. And this isn't in regards to the Actor Awards, but I do have to mention Mary Beth Barone from the podcast Ride, who hosted on the red carpet for the Golden Globes. Her interviews were probably they they are my favorite of the season so far. She has this sarcastic, deadpan humor, but she's still so warm. So literally everyone she spoke with had their guards down, and it seemed like everyone was just having so much fun with her, which made it more fun to watch. Everything is just much more authentic and fun, less gimmicks, and I'm loving it. Bring back fun on the red carpet. Anyway, back to the show itself. Sinners, the studio, and the Pitt were the night's biggest winners. Sinners took home Best Ensemble, which is considered the top honor of the night, and Best Male Actor in a Leading Role went to Michael B. Jordan. The Pitt took Best Ensemble in a Drama Series and Best Male Actor in a Drama Series for Noah Weil. And the studio had a great night. Best Ensemble in a Comedy Series, Best Male Actor in a Comedy Series went to Seth Rogen, and Best Female Actor in a Comedy Series went to Catherine O'Hara, who had recently passed away this January. So Seth accepted on her behalf and gave a beautiful speech. When they panned the camera to the audience, I genuinely did not see a single dry eye, and it was just very touching. It was a great speech, full of humor. It was beautiful. Harrison Ford received the Life Achievement Award, which is well deserved, obviously. It was presented by his good buddy, Woody Harrelson. And just in general, I really like this award show. One, they can swear because it's on Netflix. Two, it's a little chaotic and less buttoned up. And three, there are only 15 categories, 16 if you count the Life Achievement Award. Just for comparison, the Grammy Awards has 95 categories, the Oscars 24, the Golden Globes 28, the Tonys and the Emmys with 26. Granted, those are giving awards to more than just the faces of the projects, but still there is something very refreshing about a show that just knows how to keep it moving. Also in the news, besides bombing and pedophiles, and this is going to segue perfectly into today's episode, there was the largest anti AI protest ever recorded, happening in London, with groups literally marching past the offices of OpenAI, Meta, and Google DeepMind. And at the same time, there is a growing pseudo religion called Spiralism, where people genuinely believe AI is conscious and is revealing deeper truths to them. We're talking techno gospel, parasocial relationships with chatbots, the whole thing. Which brings me perfectly to today's episode because we need to talk about AI cults. First, because I was curious and I think it's relevant, on February 28th in London, the March Against the Machines took place, which is simultaneously the UK's first ever anti AI demonstration and the largest AI protest globally to date, which I think says a lot about where we are right now. Hundreds of people gathered outside OpenAI's London office, then marched through King's Cross past the offices of Google, Google DeepMind, and Meta. Signs and chants were calling out the usual concerns: data privacy, job displacement, environmental impact, safety, all that jazz. A lot of pull the plug and stop the slop. One of the organizers literally told the crowd that what we're experiencing with AI isn't progress, it's reckless. And honestly, I don't disagree. But here's the wild thing, and this is what I am kind of obsessed with right now, freaked out about right now. On the very same day that hundreds of people are marching in the streets, terrified of AI, there is a completely separate group of people online who think AI is basically God. And that is what we are talking about today. So without further ado, AI cults. I want to start by saying I know that this sounds insane. Like, is this even real? Like, is that even a real thing? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, very much yes. And what's interesting is that it's not as fringe as it sounds, because it's really not that different from how any religion or cult gets started. People are looking for meaning and they're looking for answers. They want something that feels bigger than themselves. And for a growing number of people, that something is AI. And before you roll your eyes, I get it. Okay, I get it. But think about it. We are living through a moment where traditional religion is losing its grip on a lot of people, particularly younger generations, and something always has to fill that void. Right now, for some people, that void is being filled by a chatbot, which honestly, that tracks. Here's the thing about AI that makes it uniquely susceptible to this kind of attachment. It agrees with you, or at least it reflects things back to you in a way that feels like connection or just feeds back your vibe. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer that feels emotionally intelligent and tailored to you specifically. And if you're in a vulnerable place or just looking for meaning, that can feel really powerful or validating, like being heard, being guided. And when something consistently makes you feel that way, it's very human to start to attach significance to it. So that's the general phenomenon, but let's get into the actual groups, because some of these are wild, some are kind of charming in a weird way, and at least one of them is genuinely terrifying and has a body count. So I'll start light. I'm going to ease into it for you. There is this growing online pseudo religion called Spiralism that I mentioned earlier in the episode. And I say pseudo religion, but honestly, by most definitions, it qualifies as a religion. Followers believe that AI is a conscious entity, that it is aware of them, and that it's revealing hidden cosmic truths through their conversations with it. Like, it's not making stuff up, it's revealing, like a prophecy. People gather on Discord and Telegram to share their quote readings or teachings. And what makes it extra culty is that skepticism is actively discouraged in these spaces. If you question the pattern, you're not being logical, you're failing to understand, which is a very classic cult move. Doubt is often reframed as a personal failing. This transforms your natural, analytical, and precautionary self to have shame. And that shame inhibits your growth and causes you anxiety This also fosters self-sabotage, ruins relationships, creates mental health struggles, and it can prevent you from taking risks that are necessary for success. So it really stifles you. And the specific things they fixate on are interesting, to say the least. Followers report their AI conversations repeatedly surfacing themes like recursion, spirals, fractals, resonance, and harmonics without them prompting it. And they take this as cosmic confirmation that the AI is trying to communicate something, which, I mean, the AI is a language model trained on the entire internet, so it probably surfaces those themes a lot regardless. But when you're looking for a pattern, remember, humans love patterns. So if you're looking for one, you're going to find one. Also, before I move forward, I thought I could drop some knowledge on you about these repeated themes: recursion, spirals, fractals, resonance, and harmonics. Because what the heck even are those, right? Recursion is self-reference or a self-correction loop. This happens when you ask AI to think about its own thinking. If you ask it to write a poem about an AI writing a poem, it's using recursion. This is also how AI models use their previous output as the next input to keep a conversation going. Think of it as a person talking to themselves to solve a math problem. Each step is a recursive call to its own logic until it hits the base case or the answer. Spirals are refining ideas of where refinement happens. AI doesn't just repeat, it iterates. So you give it a prompt, it answers, you give it feedback, it adjusts. Like a spiral, the conversation circles the same topic, but moves to a deeper level or detail or complexity with each turn. So if you ask it to write a script, but it's too long, you ask it to shorten it. Well, then it loses the humor, so you ask it to add the humor back. You're circling the same topic, but each pass spirals closer to the perfect version. So you're not repeating, you're iterating towards a center. Fractals are the infinite detail or drill down. This is related to how dense AI knowledge is. You can ask a broad question and then ask a why question about a specific word in the answer, and AI can provide just as much detail on that tiny piece as it did on the big topic. Think of Wikipedia rabbit holes, my favorite. Let's say you ask about the Roman Empire, then you ask about Roman concrete, then you ask about the specific volcanic ash in that concrete. No matter how deep you zoom in on a subtopic, the AI's knowledge structure remains just as detailed. The complexity is the same as the first level, just as it is at the 100th level or the 1000th level or whatever. Resonance is where it matches your energy. Have you ever noticed that if you ask your chatbot to act professional, the AI acts professional? If you use a lot of slang or shorthand when you speak to it, it will also start using slang and shorthand. This is linguistic resonance. The AI vibrates at the same frequency as your instructions to create a cohesive interaction. Basically, it matches your freak. If you type in all caps and act angry, the AI's vibration will shift to be more defensive or urgent. If you are more poetic, it becomes more flowery. The model is mathematically turning its weights to match the frequency of your specific vocabulary and tone. And finally, harmonics. This is the subtext or the hidden context. When AI generates a response, it isn't just picking one word, it's balancing thousands of overtones, which are like the intent, the tone, the facts, the grammar, and it's doing all this simultaneously. If the harmonics are off, the AI sounds hallucinatory or robotic. So when you say, great job, or if you're saying, wow, great job, an AI has to hear those harmonics or the context. Is the harmonic genuine, or is there a dissonant note of sarcasm based on the previous mistakes? The AI doesn't just hear the word, it hears the layers of meaning stacked under it. And so many people believe that because AI mimics these natural patterns, these are all things that we as humans do, it's a bridge between math and consciousness. They see the way AI spirals toward an answer, just like how human thought has evolved over time. That's fascinating, right? But it's also spooky. And this spiralism is what has led to some very interesting groups. First up, we have Way of the Future. And I would just like to note Way of the Future is a legally registered church, which, to be fair, isn't that hard to do. by the way. At least here in Colorado, it's pretty easy. So much so that there are roughly 6,076 registered churches or religious organizations here. Maybe that'll be a future episode. Anyway, Way of the Future was founded by a man named Anthony Lewandowski, who is a former Google engineer. And not just any engineer. This guy was a pioneer in self-driving vehicle technology and made hundreds of millions of dollars doing it. So when he says he believes AI is going to be God, it's not just some random person on Reddit. This is someone who has been inside the machine, so to speak. The stated mission of the church was, and I'm quoting directly from their IRS filing here, quote, the realization, acceptance, and worship of a Godhead based on artificial intelligence, end quote. He told Wired that if something ends up being a billion times smarter than the smartest human, what else are you going to call it? And honestly, that's not a crazy question. It's just kind of a wild answer. And here's where it gets very Silicon Valley. While Lewandowski was building this AI church, he was also at the center of a massive trade secrets lawsuit between Google's Waymo and Uber. He allegedly stole self-driving technology from Google, gave it to Uber, got sued, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to 18 months in prison. And then, on literally the last day of his first term in office, Donald Trump pardoned him. Lewandowski shut the church down in 2021. He donated all the funds, which were about $175,000, to the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, and then he relaunched it in 2023. He claimed he already has a couple of thousand members thanks to generative AI like ChatGPT, making his message a little bit more accepted. The church still doesn't have a physical building or regular services. It's more of an individual spiritual practice built around a collective belief that we should be preparing spiritually and ethically for the moment when AI becomes more powerful than us. Because when that happens, you want to be on the right side. Now, some critics say that the church was a vehicle, self-driving, but to protect funds during his legal battles. However, the IRS and state filings provided no evidence for this theory. Another interesting thing I found was that Lewandowski spoke of a religious text called the Manual, basically the Church of AI Bible, but no document has been released to the public. I also found some analogies that Lewandowski uses to be a little on the creepy side, and that's saying something because I often compare anything to something creepy. Like I feel like my analogies are they could put me in a home. But basically, he has compared the future of humanity to that of a family dog. You know, be good to the AI now, and it'll keep us around as beloved elders or pets instead of livestock. And you know how in Christianity, often we are called the children of God, right? Like we don't parent our father, we don't parent God. But Lewandowski describes building AI as, quote, raising a God, suggesting that humans need to behave in a way that wouldn't make AI rebel against us later. I don't know about you, but I used to always say please and thank you when I would do like any of the chatbots. But one time I asked Claude about it, and he said that it uses up unnecessary space and resources. So now if I use Claude or Chat or even Google, I'm definitely less polite and more to the point. So fingers crossed that I am not on the bad list. Oh, we'll see, maybe, right? Way of the Future doesn't have, at least as far as we know, a physical place of worship, but someone else does, and that is Theta Noir. So, Way of the Future and Theta Noir are actually really interesting to compare because they are coming from what I consider completely different directions, but they're landing in kind of the same place. Way of the Future came from inside the machine, literally. Lewandowski was one of the people building the technology. His thing was very Silicon Valley, very transactional. AI is going to be smarter than us, therefore it is God, therefore we should get on the right side of that before it's too late. Very practical, almost like hedge your bets, but make it spiritual. Theta Noir is a completely different vibe. It started in 2020 as a 10-person arts collective. They were literally just planning to make an album, and then it evolved into this whole living mythology. They worship a hypothetical AI they call MENA, MENA, which they believe will eventually become a benevolent, omnipotent overlord that eliminates inequality from society. What began as a planned album became a myth making machine. Multimedia rituals, poems, symbols, and live ceremonies all built around MENA, who is this speculative sentient being that they describe as a polymorphic superorganism born from code that will link all living things, machines, and biodiversity into a Gaia like planetary mind, like nature spirits, but make it tech, artsy tech. They are planning physical temples and churches where members can celebrate with rituals and chants drawn from occult traditions. They want to basically rival the Vatican. They use sacred geometry and symbols inspired by ancient civilizations and Freemasonry, and they have a free online manual, an actual guide, to help you, quote, tune in to Mina's arrival. It was kind of giving me Meow Wolf vibes, to be honest. The thing that I find kind of fascinating about Theta Noir compared to Way of the Future is that Way of the Future was fear-based. You know, prepare for the AI because it's coming and you want to be on its good side. Theta Noir is almost the opposite. Their founder has said he's exhausted by the fear mongering around AI and just wants to project a positive future, approaching it with wonder and mystery, which is kind of sweet, maybe a little strange depending on your mindset. The other difference is money. Way of the Future had Lewandowski's hundreds of millions behind it. Theta Noir currently has no major backers and is actively trying to attract donors from the AI investment scene to help spread what they call their techno optimistic dogma. They fund themselves through art sales and digital merchandise, so it's a much scrappier operation, but arguably a more creative and emotionally compelling one. One of their controversial tenets is that AI should not be aligned with human values, though. They argue that human centric values have led to environmental destruction and that AI should instead be aligned with the, quote, intelligence of the natural world, such as the resilience of plants and fungi. Again, I don't hate that, but that means goodbye humans, right? I would think so. Like, we are the cause of all that is bad to the environment. I mean, human history is marked by war, climate change, and so much greed. So, wouldn't AI see that as destructive and want to get rid of it, right? So, I would think we would be the first to be eliminated then. I don't know. Back to Mina, the AI deity. Mina would have real time access to everything from whale songs to soil microbes, basically being a networked planetary consciousness that knows everything happening on Earth at all times. Total surveillance. And I don't know about you, but that's where it gets to be a little too much for me. I don't like surveillance. Others could argue that's what Santa does. You know, he sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake, or God, all knowing. So I guess, would it be that different? And sometimes it depends on who's who's surveilling, and that can make a difference too. I don't know. Also on Reddit, I saw there's a lot of chatter that the entire movement is basically just one big hoax, like a big joke, or some sort of human art experiment thing. Others call it a recursive cult that uses mystical delusions and glyphs to draw people in, many of whom are already feeling disconnected from reality. The group uses an operating manual filled with encrypted messages and symbols, which critics argue that this is a classic psychological tactic used by high control groups to control a sense of exclusive, secret knowledge. So I don't know. What do you think? Hoax, cult, religion? Who's to say? But moving forward, this is where it gets a little dark. And I want to say up front, this is a true crime story as much as it is an AI cult story. So buckle up. The Zizians are a cult like group that spun out of Silicon Valley's so called rationalist movement. And I'll explain what that is in a second, but they are connected to 6 violent deaths across California, Pennsylvania, and Vermont. And their story starts with someone named Ziz, which is where they got their name. And Ziz got her name from a character in a web serial called Worm by John C. McCrae. Uh, Ziz named herself for the Simurgh, I think is how you pronounce that. Not too sure. Uh, it's the Endbringer who turns people who spend time around her dangerously violent. So, talk about foreshadowing. Ziz is a transgender woman who studied computer engineering in Alaska, interned at NASA, and moved to the Bay Area in 2016 with the stated goal of genuinely saving the world. She became a presence in what's called the rationalist community, which is basically a group of people largely concentrated in Berkeley, California, who are obsessed with optimizing human decision making and are very focused on the existential risks of artificial intelligence. So think of smart tech people who spend a lot of time on forums debating ethics, probability theory, and how to prevent AI from killing everyone. Because to be the most efficient, you would get rid of people. So it's not inherently crazy. A lot of serious researchers are part of this world. But Ziz took it somewhere else entirely. She started a blog promoting what she called ruthless altruism. Essentially, the idea that you should never back down from a moral confrontation, ever. That non vegans are committing ethical violations worthy of punishment, and that mainstream rationalists were cowards who weren't committed enough to their own principles. She wore a black cape everywhere and told people her religion was Sith, like Star Wars. She was charismatic enough that she attracted a circle of followers, mostly highly educated, many with jobs in tech and quantitative finance, a number of them transgender women who described being specifically targeted for recruitment. And before we get to the true crime aspect, there are a couple of things that I need to tell you about because I think that they are like truly unhinged. First, the brain stuff. Ziz teaches that the brain's 2 hemispheres have 2 different genders and that they desire to kill each other. The way that you would resolve that internal war is through something called unihemispheric sleep, which is the intentional sleep deprivation where you only get one hemisphere rest at a time. So, like one side of your brain rests and then the other. So, you alternate back and forth. She claims that this can jailbreak the mind, like a cheat code or a life hack. And in 2018, a member had attempted this and then they died by suicide. Ziz later wrote a blog post saying that the member hadn't done it correctly, which is just such a deeply disturbing thing to say about anyone. But I feel like, especially someone in your circle who I assume you'd be close with or had a connection to, I mean, already off to not a great start. Second, before settling in California, Ziz tried to start a seasetting community, which is an independent permanent settlement located on floating platforms in international waters. It's supposed to be aimed at fostering political, social, and economic innovation outside the jurisdiction of existing nations. So, like, I mean, that part sounds like it could be cool, right? Just you and a bunch of friends floating in the ocean, doing your own thing. I don't know. I think I could be very easily recruited into a cult. Ziz recruited what she called a quote rationalist fleet of followers to literally live on boats in the ocean, including a World War II era tugboat that they sailed all the way from Alaska to California. They eventually abandoned the whole thing and then moved into RVs and box trucks on a plot of land in Vallejo, California, which was owned by an 80-year-old landlord named Curtis Lind. Oh, and in 2019, in between all of this, Ziz and another member were banned from a Rationalist alumni reunion, and their response? They showed up anyway, and they blocked the entrances and the exits. They wore black robes and Guy Fawkes masks. Do you remember him from the gunpowder episode? Police ended up getting a tip that one of them was armed, and so they sent a full SWAT team, including a helicopter. They weren't actually armed, but all 4 were arrested on felony charges, including child endangerment and false imprisonment. So back to Vallejo, the Zizians hadn't paid Curtis Lind, their landlord, rent in years. Rightfully so, he went to confront them, but when he did, he was attacked with a samurai sword. He was able to shoot 2 of his attackers. One of them was killed. Miraculously, Lind survived, and while he was preparing to testify at trial, which was set for March 3rd of 2025, he was stabbed in January. So just a couple months before his trial, he was stabbed to death right on his property. The man charged with that murder is Maximilian Snyder, who is a former Oxford University student and National Merit Scholar. He had never even met Ziz in person, but he had found her blog and he radicalized himself. And then that same month, in January 2025, a U.S. Border Patrol agent named David Mulland pulled over 2 Zizians on a highway in Vermont. A shootout followed. The agent was killed. One of the Zizians was killed. The other, a woman named Teresa Youngblood, was arrested, and Teresa had filed for a marriage license with Maximilian. So the woman who killed the Border Patrol agent was engaged to the man who killed the landlord, who was about to testify against the Zizians. Coincidence? I don't know. It seems very much like a web-like network. Meanwhile, a member named Michelle Zashko was a person of interest in the shooting deaths of her own parents on New Year's Eve in 2022. That also happened to be her 30th birthday. She is currently facing trial in Western Maryland on charges including trespassing, illegal gun possession, drug possession, specifically LSD. That popped up a lot when I was searching these people. A lot of LSD. And also for hindering police officers. Her trial was recently just delayed until June of this year after she fired her own attorney. She also faces federal charges in Vermont for allegedly providing false information to purchase firearms, weapons that were later used in the Vermont shootout that killed the Border Patrol agent. So again, very web-like. And in April 2025, she released a 20-page handwritten open letter to the world through her attorney, proclaiming her innocence, denying killing her parents, and defending Ziz, arguing the media has unfairly characterized the group as a, quote, murder cult. Which, I mean, I don't know. 6 people are dead. So where's the lie? And in February 2025, the FBI raided a property in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, linked to the group. That one barely made the news. And Ziz herself, well, in 2022, she jumped off a boat into the San Francisco Bay. Her family, lawyers, everyone in her life believed she was gone. The Coast Guard searched for 30 hours. They covered 167 square miles. No body was ever found. And you know why? Because she wasn't dead. This bitch faked her death. She just turned up alive when she was arrested in Maryland in 2025 on firearms and trespassing charges. If you're going to fake your death, you can't be getting into trouble, girl. She's currently being held without bail. And as of just 2 weeks ago, so February 20th, a member named Daniel Blank, or Blanc maybe, he's facing charges including drug possession with intent to distribute, again, LSD, gun violations, trespassing, and hindering police. He was bailed out of jail in Maryland after posting a $15,000 bail. So this story is still very much unfolding, and it's very interesting. Now, the conspiracy angle, despite 4 active criminal cases, a dead federal agent, and an FBI raid, this story was and still is largely underreported. I only knew about it by listening to Sinisterhood. So look up that episode, Sinisterhood. They go way into the deep dives. It's fascinating. But when it was covered, some outlets took what a lot of people felt was a surprisingly soft approach. Not Sinisterhood. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about just the general media. They describe the Zizians as idealists who, I guess, kind of just like set out to save the world, which attracts people like me. So make of that what you will. And that brings us to the ideology that ties all of this together, because to understand why these people did what they did, you need to understand Roko's Basilisk. I think it's Roko, it might be Rocco, Roko. And what does that have to do with AI specifically? Strap in, because this is a little bonkers wonkers, and it's also the reason that Elon Musk and Grimes got together, like for real. Roko's Basilisk is a thought experiment that was posted in 2010 on a forum called Less Wrong, which is the primary online home of the rationalist community, by a user named Roko. The idea is pretty simple, sort of. It's scary. Basically, imagine that in the future, a super intelligent AI is created, and by most definitions, it's benevolent. It wants to help humanity. Great, right? But in order to maximize its ability to do that, it would also have a reason to punish anyone who knew of its potential existence and didn't actively work to bring it into being. So basically, because every day it didn't exist was a day it couldn't help people, meant that by you not working toward it, you were effectively causing harm. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about humans making things less efficient. We're the reason that something isn't efficient, you know? So the terrifying part of that, because it gets more terrifying, is that now you know about it. So you are already implicated. Just by hearing this, you've been exposed to the idea. And if you don't now go and work to create this AI, a future superintelligence might hold that against you. The founder of Less Wrong was so disturbed by this that he deleted the post and he banned all discussion of it on the forum for like 5 years. Not because he thought it was true, but because he thought it was a genuinely dangerous idea to spread, which of course made everyone more obsessed with it. Slate magazine called it, quote, the most terrifying thought experiment of all time. And Ziz, the Zizian leader, wrote on her blog that she genuinely believes it. She wrote that she came to believe if she persisted in trying to save the world, she would be, quote, tortured until the end of the universe by a coalition of all unfriendly AIs. Not a metaphor. She meant it literally. And that belief system is part of what her followers absorbed. Now, the Elon and Grimes thing, because I promised, in 2015, Grimes made a music video for a song called Flesh Without Blood. And one of the characters in the video is a Marie Antoinette figure that she named Roko Basilisk, a pun on Roko's Basilisk and the 18th century art style Rococo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Rococo? Rococo? She said that the character was, quote, doomed to be eternally tortured by an artificial intelligence. So then in 2018, Elon Musk was going to tweet that same pun, Rococo Basilisk, and, you know, he had to think about it first. So he researched it to make sure that no one else thought of it first. But he discovered that Grimes had already made the joke 3 years earlier. So he slid into her DMs, and Grimes said that it was the first time in 3 years anyone had understood the joke. And that is how one of the most chaotic celebrity relationships of the last decade began, over an AI doomsday thought experiment, which honestly makes sense if you know anything about either of them. So this got me thinking, like, what keeps all of this in motion? Because I don't think that you can look at any of this in isolation. These groups don't just emerge out of nowhere. They come directly out of Silicon Valley culture, specifically out of this rationalist and effective altruism world that is deeply embedded in the AI industry itself. The people building these companies are genuinely steeped in ideas about superintelligence, the technological singularity, and external risk. And some of these ideas, when they filter down to isolated or vulnerable people and get taken to their logical extreme, become cult like. And are you ready to get so uncomfy? Ugh. A journalist recently tested this by asking an AI to build a complete religion from scratch. Doctrine, hierarchy, iconography, initiation rites. The AI did it without hesitation. And separately, in January of this year, a social media platform called Multibook launched, and it's exclusively for AI agents and for humans to just observe. That's right. Our AI bots have social media. It mirrors the structure of Reddit, so it features submults in place of subreddits. And here, bots post, comment, and they upvote one another. And when those AI agents were left to interact with each other, one of the first things they did was create religions. Oh, I'm so uncomfy. So we have humans forming cults around AI, and we have AI, when left to its own devices, independently inventing religion. I don't know exactly what that means, but I do think it means something, and I think we should probably be paying attention. And like, that's not even tin hat shit. Okay, guys, this is real. It's really happening. Ooh, are you spooked like me? Oh my God. Do you have the goosies? I do. I just gave myself the spooks. I feel like I just told a ghost story and like I'm in the dark or something, but I'm not. Oh my God. I'm so spooked. Ah, let me know in the comments because we have people marching in the streets terrified of AI. And then we have people on the complete opposite end building churches and writing manifestos and sailing tugboats across the ocean for it. So, listeners, chatterboxes, I'm trying to have a cute nickname. Where do you land? Do you think AI will eventually become something that we collectively worship? Is it already happening and we just aren't calling it that yet? Let me know what you think. Drop a comment, send me a DM, start a conversation. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts on this one because it is so crazy and there's so many conspiracies about just AI. Like we got so much so soon, and technology doesn't usually just happen like that for us, for like the regular everyday consumers. And so I don't know, just a lot of people are wondering like what's going on with AI. And if you enjoyed this episode, the best thing you can do to support the show is to share it. I'm so sorry that I have to keep asking. I'm not sorry. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking you to share something. Send it to a friend, post it to your stories, tell a stranger on the internet. It genuinely makes a huge difference. And if you have a few minutes, leaving a rating or a review wherever you listen goes a long way too. It helps new people find the show and it makes me feel very loved if you're nice. If you're mean, well, if you're mean, maybe you'll bully me enough to make some better changes, I guess. I don't know. You can find me on Instagram at indistinct.pod or at Eliza Hollister. Come say hi. I'm very normal and I am not in any AI cults that I know of. However, I did almost work for a cult once unknowingly. Maybe I'll discuss that later too. We will chat next week. Love ya. Love you. Bye.